Good evening. I'd like to welcome each of you to the Tuesday, February 21st, School Board of Alachua County Business Meeting. If you all would please join me as we stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you. The board is now going to come down. We're so happy to see here. I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Rolo. I'll let you do the introduction, and we'll come on down while you do.
Thank you so much. Good evening, Madam Chair, board members, Superintendent Andrew, and district administrators. Before we get to tonight's special performance, I'd like to thank the art teachers for their work here in the boardroom. This month we have artwork from Meadowbrook Elementary on Board 4, Foster Elementary, Boards 2 and 3, directly behind the board members, and Childs Elementary on Board 1 and 5 and 6 behind me. Thank you, art teachers, for sharing your wonderful student artwork with us. For more stellar artwork from around the district, our second K-12 student exhibit will be featured at the Historic Thomas Center beginning next week. Our reception honoring our student artists will be held on March 2nd at 6:30 p.m. with the awards presentation beginning at 7 p.m. The performing arts continue to be in full swing this spring with solo and ensemble festivals, theater performances, and music performance assessments approaching for our bands and choirs. You may have also received invitations to Black History Month presentations happening at many of our schools this month. Here with us tonight, in honor of Black History Month, is the Stephen Foster Elementary Chorus under the direction of Mrs. Carolyn Turner. Tonight, they will perform Free at Last and My Personal Code. Please welcome the Stephen Foster Elementary School Chorus.
Doctor, we
want to, as the other board members make their way back to the dais, I want to thank Ms. Turner and the Stephen Foster Flyers. I'm going to presume that is the name of your choral group for Steamers, pardon me. You all did excellent. Two very appropriate songs for this time of year. The first one I enjoyed, but that second one was very touching. Your personal code, we all need that. Attitude, character, excellence, all three character ideas that we all should embrace, and we have to embrace them personally. So I want to thank Ms. Turner for that, and if any other board members would like to have something to say, Dr. McNeely, we'll start with you.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. Students, I rocked along with you. I love that movement that you were doing, but more importantly, the words. And now I'm going to adopt that. I have a personal code. Thank you so very much. And as Chairman, can't even think certain, stated about the first song too, was just very, very touching. You have learned so much. You have a great teacher, don't you? Mm-hmm. Thank you so much.
You guys have wonderful voices, and it's so refreshing to see kids getting together and singing, especially songs that have a really good message to send out. So thank you guys so much, and thanks to Ms. Turner also.
Thank you, Ms. Turner and the Stephen Foster Chorus for this excellent performance. Your singing was beautiful, and your message was inspiring. Thank you.
Yes, thank you to all of the students for setting the mood, setting the atmosphere this evening. And thank you to the parents for taking time out to bring them, for them. I think music is good for the soul. It's a great way to open up every meeting. So thank you, and Ms. Turner, thank you for your hard work with the children. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you all. I tell you, and she directed the chorus from the side, not in front of them. Normally they were standing there. I was expecting her to move in front of them, but they were very well rehearsed and did an excellent job. So thank you all. I see Ms. Mosley in the back, the AP there. Thank you all for joining us. To all the parents, we enjoyed having you all tonight. Thank you all. Give them a moment to adjust out. So we'll now, if I could get a motion to adopt our agenda for tonight's meeting.
So move.
Second.
Is there any discussion, any consent agenda items that need to be, anyone wants to move for further discussion? Okay, seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Motion passes 5-0. We're happy to have Dr. Rockwell back with us on this meeting here and hope that she has a speedy recovery. Next on our agenda is approval of the regular school board minute meetings from February 7th, 2023.
So moved, Madam Chair.
Second.
Second.
Thank you. Motion by Ms. McGraw, second by Dr. McNeely. There are a few minor adjustments that I'd like for us to consider. On page 3 of the minutes, and Ms. Green, I apologize, I didn't get these to you prior to the meeting. For items 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, those are the waivers that we approved. I was wondering if we could, I think it would be a good idea if we add the date to those so that when we Google that and we look in board docs so that we'll know if we could just adjust the description on all of those to be waivers for 2022, 2023. And then lastly, at the bottom of down, I'm sorry, I didn't write the page for that, but under the strategic visioning and where the requests that we made, the motion to direct Mr. Andrew to hire an internal auditor to come into compliance with state statute. I said that we could hire someone on staff, or the Auditor General's office has approved for a firm, a CPA firm, to do that as well. And I think if we could adjust that for that. So, I would guess those amendments, do I need to vote on those amendments, or could we just have those? Okay. So I'd like to amend the motion that was made with those corrections there, if I could get someone to do that, make that as a motion.
Since I made the motion, I'll accept.
Okay. Dr. May, okay, thank you. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Opposes? Okay, nay. Thank you. The next, we have a motion to approve the workshop minutes from February 8th.
Madam Chair, I would just recommend that we adopt as amended.
Okay, I'm sorry. Thank you. So now, can I get a motion to adopt the minutes as amended?
So moved.
Second, please.
Second.
Okay, thank you, Ms. McGraw, and second by Ms. Abbott. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Opposers? Okay, motion passes 5-0. Okay. And I did not ask, is there any public input on that? I forgot to ask that. Okay, all right, thank you. Seeing none. All right, can I get a motion for the workshop minutes for February 8th to approve those?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Abbott.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. McGraw, for the second. Is there any discussion? Okay. Seeing no discussion, all in favor? Aye. Opposes? Okay, none. All right, so next we'll have board member and superintendent announcements. And I'm going to ask if you have your lights on, when I acknowledge you, if you would please turn your light off, and that way I can keep up with them. So we'll start with Ms. McGraw.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening to each of you all who are in attendance, to my colleagues. Rode the bus yesterday with Miss Jody, bus 1902, and I want to thank her so much. I rode with her yesterday morning, but I'll be going back out on Thursday for the afternoon shift, riding with the bus. So thank you to her and her attendant. Also, thank you to all of the employees. As I'm visiting the schools, I thank all of our employees, because I know in our schools, some of them are really dealing with some stress because of behavior issues, and I just want to say thank you. I went out on Friday, and my heart, I just couldn't sleep this weekend because I was so concerned about some of the people that I witnessed. But thank you. You know who I'm talking to, but thank you so much for coming to work and hanging in there. I really do appreciate that, and I have to say that. Also, along with myself, my colleague, Ms. Abbott, we attended finance training this past week, and I tell you, learning a lot about finance and some of the restrictions, but I'm a believer. It's not we can't, we still can, even with some of the restrictions we have. But it was a great presentation, learned a lot, and so was thankful for that opportunity. And also attended Gainesville High Schools, which most of us, I know Dr. McNeely did, the LaVon Bracey Black History Program at Gainesville High School, just to hear her story. This is why I do what I do, wanting to serve because of hearing her story. And I was really happy to hear how she shared when she integrated into Gainesville High School, which is not an easy task, but how she made it through. And sometimes we have to understand, no matter what you're dealing with, you have to continue to keep going. And so that was a great message. And our students, I watched the students, and it was well received by the students. And also, on behalf of colleagues, sometimes we get invited to community events, and so I attended the Public Policy Committee and shared our legislative platform, what we're filing for 2023 for all of the counties. And so it was a great conversation with the Chamber Public Policy Committee. And that concludes my comments. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Dr. McNeely.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to say I enjoyed so much last Thursday visiting Lake Forest Elementary as well as Shell Elementary. I learned so much at both schools. I really felt good about what I observed, and I felt so welcome by the staff and administration and the students. Thank you so very much. And I, too, as my colleague, Mrs. McGraw, stated, participated at Gainesville High School for the Black History Program. It was totally student-run and produced. So thank you to those students. Thank you so much for the history gained at that event as well. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Dr. McNeil, would you turn your light off for
Sure.
me? And I'll make my comments later. Mr. Andrew, I'll let you go.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm pleased to welcome Joseph Wiggum as the new student representative to the School Board of Alachua County. Joseph is a senior in the Academy of Fire and Emergency Services. So Joseph is a senior in the Academy of Fire and Emergency Services at the Professional Academies Magnet at Lofton High School. According to the director of the program, Joseph is on track to earn both Firefighter 1 and Emergency Medical Service certification, which is certainly very impressive. I understand his goal after high school is to enter the Emergency Medical Technician program at Santa Fe College and eventually become a wildland firefighter. Joseph is also a member of the Alachua Fire and Rescue Cadet Program, which is run by the Alachua County Fire Rescue. As a cadet, Joseph attends meetings, completes assignments, undergoes regular training, and competes in local and state fire and EMS skills competitions. Young people participating in this program must meet high standards in conduct, leadership, attendance, academics, and performance. We're extremely proud to have such an impressive young man serving as our student representative to the school board. Mr. Wiggum, we welcome you aboard. There's been quite a bit of misinformation circulating on social media in the last week about books in our schools. I want to address those issues with you tonight. As you may know, state law now requires school districts to publish a list of the books in each elementary school's collection. This is something that Alachua County Public Schools has been doing for years for all grades. But as a result of the change in the law and increased attention to the issue of books in schools, many more people across the country are reviewing our online database and those for other school districts. Unfortunately, most visitors are understandably not familiar with the database. That's led to confusion about what is and isn't available to students. For example, people looking at the database won't know that a book they see listed has been out of circulation for at least 5 years and has been removed from the collection, or that it is only available to teachers, not students, and is stored in a separate area not accessible to students. It's our responsibility to ensure that parents and other visitors to our website have an accurate understanding of what is actually available to students. Our Media Services Department is currently working with media specialists across the district to revise the database so that it reflects only those books that are currently available to students at each school. We expect that process to be completed by spring break. In a community as diverse as ours, people will certainly disagree about which books should be available in schools or in certain schools. For many years, people in Alachua County have had options if they have a concern about a particular book. Any Alachua County resident can file a request for reevaluation of instructional materials. It's available on our Media Services website at www.sbac.edu/MEDIAREVIEW. So that's www.sbac.edu/media review. A parent can also go to that web page to request that their child not be allowed to check out certain books or categories of books. Ultimately, our goal is to provide a robust reading environment for all our students while also following state law and giving families a way to address their concerns about their child's access to certain books in our schools. My last announcement this evening is that longtime Alachua County Public Schools educator Mr. Robert Britton Baker III passed away recently. Following his service during the Vietnam War as an Air Force pilot, Mr. Baker began his career as an educator. He loved being an educator, and he served his entire career in the Alachua County school system at Hawthorne High School, Gainesville High School, Lofton High School, and Eastside High School. Our condolences, thoughts, and prayers go out to Mr. Baker's family and friends. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Andrew, for those announcements. And just so you all know, I've spoken with our student rep, Joseph, and told him that at the end of the agenda each meeting that we'll give him a space to speak and to bring concerns to us. We'll do that before we have the board member superintendent request, board member requests at the end of the meeting each time. So Ms. Green, if you'll make that, so we'll put it as part of our agenda when we do agenda review so I don't forget it, that would be good. And I told Joseph he can speak tonight if he's prepared, and if not, he can, at our next meeting, he could have that space to do that. Okay. Next, we have space for citizen input. The first 15 minutes of our, at this particular time, we provide 15 minutes of citizen input. As part of our board meeting, if you can address us during this time period for anything that's not a regular agenda item. And if you have a form, I will call the forms that I have and we'll address those if we have any phone calls as well. If you don't have a form, after I get finished with these, you can go to the podium and state your name and you'll have 3 minutes with the board. And the first one that I have is Ms. Carmen Ward.
Thank you, Chair Certain. I'm Carmen Ward. I'm the Alachua County Education Association president, and I have been requested by one of my members who is a real elementary teacher to read her thoughts. And this is to the board members and Superintendent Andrew, and this is a real person who remains anonymous. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. While speaking anonymously is not beneficial to either you as a collective board and superintendent or me as a teacher, I truly feel that speaking up is essential to the current crisis that's happening in our classrooms. We, the Alachua County Public Schools, are hemorrhaging teachers as we speak. You as a board must put teacher retention at the forefront in your planning. We teachers are operating in crisis mode when it comes to substitutes and lack thereof. Just recently, I lost planning time due to no substitute available to cover my class as special area teacher. I also had to assimilate a small group of students into my room for the day as no sub was available for a class on my grade level. Those students sat and listened during teaching and activity time as I had no paperwork pre-planned for them to complete. For lack of a better word, they existed for the day. Looking ahead, I have no upcoming planning one day in the next week due to the fact that I will be attending a student meeting regarding academics and testing. I'm tired, overworked, and way underappreciated. Not once in the instances of having no sub was I asked by my administration if I would be willing to lose planning or take on additional students. It was just expected. Teachers with no tenure fear speaking out, and teachers with tenure only want to be anonymous. I myself have applied and am actively applying for positions outside the public school system. I can no longer work for a district that's basically extinguishing my passion or the reason why I go to work. I urge each one of you board members and the superintendent to make yourself available for substituting at least one time per month in our schools so that you can see firsthand what the crisis is like. If you aren't willing to substitute, at least be willing to sit with the teachers and listen to their story. It is important. We are important. It is my hope that you will see the value in the instructional personnel in our district before all of your excellent instructional staff walk out with no regrets in order to not lose their passion for teaching. So that was, oh, I'm out of time. But I wanted to say thank you to all the transportation workers, as it's Transportation Appreciation Week too. So big thank you to them. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Ward. Janine Richard, is that, okay. Please pardon me if I mispronounce your name.
Good evening, Board and Madam Chair and Superintendent. My name is Jana Reichard, and I'm here from Transportation here at SBAC. I've had one heck of a past week worth of days at work, and I'm at a loss because behavior and discipline are a really big problem, not just on the bus level, but in the school level and in the home level. Now, we can't help the home level, but at the school level and the bus level, we can help. I have learned, due to the 6 referrals that I wrote last week for things like cussing, vaping, and lighting fires on my school bus, that there is a huge disconnect between the deans, the children, and the parents, at least at Westwood, because that's what I'm referring to. That's my school. I was told yesterday afternoon, after yesterday morning having the second fire that I smelled on my bus, burning hair. You won't forget that smell. If you've ever smelled it, it's a very distinct smell, and you don't ever forget it. And that's exactly what it was. So I called for the dean as I was pulling in, because that's when they did it, right before I turned off the street onto the street that Westwood is on. And I called for a dean and sat and waited and waited and waited. And I called again and waited and waited. I didn't let the kids off the bus because I didn't know who did it, because I didn't see it. All I did was smell it. And then I called a third time, to which dispatch said to me, well, I don't know how to help you with that because we've called twice already. My response, call them again, because I'm not letting these children off this bus until a dean or resource officer get to me and help me. Because I don't know who did it. I can't pull the tape. The only thing I can do is write a referral. That's it. Yesterday afternoon, I was informed by the by the assistant principal that those boys that I wrote up had been suspended since last Friday. Whoops, guess you forgot to tell them, their parents, and me, because I didn't know. They rode the bus Friday, they rode the bus yesterday, they rode the bus again this morning. So I had to do write-ups again, because that's what our policy is when they ride the bus during a suspension. This afternoon, the AP came and talked to me as I was giving him those write-ups, and he said, well, yes, there was some sort of miscommunication with the parent, and we didn't know, they didn't know, so we're going to suspend them for the rest of the week. Why are we getting suspended for 3 days when you're lighting a fire on a school bus? Google school bus fire demonstration, and I think that you would encourage anyone getting in trouble for that to be suspended for much longer than 3 days. Thank you guys for listening. I really appreciate you.
Thank you. Ron Rawls.
Hello, everyone. How you doing? I'm Ron Rawls, pastor of Greater Bethel AME Church. Got something I want to share with you that I want you to. I've taken a break from school board meetings. Just became frustrated. Didn't think that there was an idea, a thought of real change. Building wealth is extremely important to me, especially for my community. You all are critically. You have a critical role in the ability to build wealth. I mentioned a couple years ago how important it was to us to begin addressing the achievement gap. We spent a whole lot of time fighting with the governor about masks and things like that, but I felt like we were not doing the work for the achievement gap. So last year, the achievement gap, I think for the state is about 28%, Alachua County, 45%. I went to Duval Elementary School. Large community. Well, y'all closed it down. I'm sure it was because of underachievement. When I look at Lake Forest, Lake Forest, the average achievement level is below 25%. Williams, below 19%. So we're setting those schools up to get ready also down the road to close them down. Let's do something to fix the problem. We have an empty school over there at Duval. We have a charter school here that knows how to teach our students. It's going to take humility on your parts, but I think what we need to do is great, all the after-school programs that are over at Duval. But the community needs a school. I think we need to consider ways to allow caring and sharing to occupy that space during educational time. They're successful with the exact type of students that we're failing at. And then you all be humble enough to look at the model. What are they doing different? It's the same students, that 19%, 25% that are achieving at other schools, the same type of students. What's causing them to be so successful? Look at that model, begin to implement it, customize it, because it's going to continue to allow the wealth gap to get larger and larger and larger if we don't fix the problem in education. I'm really hoping you all. My wife and I, we're willing to invest whatever it takes to make it work. My church is willing to invest in whatever it takes to make that property work. And so we want you all to have a real conversation. We started this about a year and a half ago, then the superintendent got distracted and went another direction and blew everything up. We need to allow caring and sharing to utilize that facility for education during the daytime at Duval Elementary School.
Thank you. Pastor Rawls, thank you for coming and for joining. I want to you said that the school was closed, Duval was closed for low achievement. Duval was not, that's not the reason why it was closed. It was closed because it was under-enrolled when we lost the Head Start grant. We ended up with just about 130 students there, and the district couldn't afford to run a school that's with a capacity of about 500 for just over 130 students there. And district staff had gotten feedback from parents who, because Duval was considered the early learning center, and it was just Head Start, pre-K Head Start, and kindergarten there, the siblings were at either Rollins or Metcalf, and that it was a strain on the families who were transportation limited to have a young student at one school and the others. But the decision was primarily driven to pause Duval because of low enrollment, and we're trying to do some rezoning so that we could try to see what we can do with students, but we just didn't have enough students to have that school enrolled. So I just wanted to correct that with you. That point there, your point is well taken with Karen and Sharon. I've been there, and they do good work there, and I've spoken with Mr. Peterson, Principal Peterson there on numerous occasions, and he has not expressed a desire to occupy Duval or Prairie View before we even started using that. I asked him straight out before I was a board member and since I've been here, but normally this is not what we do as far as dialoguing with our citizens, but I did want to let you know that we didn't close it for low achievement. We closed Duval to students because we just didn't have the students enrolled there, and it was costing so much, and we didn't have the funds to maintain it. But your point is indeed very well taken, and it is a serious matter that we do have to act with urgency to address the student learning, the learning of our students that attend school, Lake Forest, Rollins, Metcalf, as well as the other schools in the county where we have subgroups of students that are not performing at grade level. I wholeheartedly agree with you, and I hear you.
I don't completely buy it, but I'm out of time, but I'll talk me and you'll talk.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Pastor Rawls, thank you for being here tonight. And because we do not dialogue with citizens, I'd like you to know that you will get a call from me tomorrow, and I'd like to share and talk with you about some issues. Okay?
Thank you. Thank you. Are there any other citizens in the auditorium that didn't do a citizen input? Yeah. Please come to the podium and state your name. You'll have 3 minutes with the board, please.
My name is Debbie Lewis. I'm a community activist and retired children's librarian, and I spent a lot of years working with children on different literacy projects. And as such, it's alarming to me to hear discussion or suggestion of censorship of books. So really I have 2 questions. One, is it true that teachers are being directed to remove their classroom libraries, the books from their shelves in their classroom libraries, or cover them pending some kind of approval by a specially trained media specialist. And if there's any truth to that, I would like to know how I can gain access, how the public can gain access to the criteria by which books are being censored. Because, you know, I hear things, I see things, and I don't know how much of them are true, but if they're removing, you know, the biography of one of my childhood heroes, Roberto Clemente, because, oh, he faced some racial struggles, you know, if they're trying to erase history, I don't think that's okay, and I don't think most people would think that's okay.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Superintendent Andrew addressed the citizens, your concern early in the meeting, but if you have, Ms. Lewis, if you would like to leave your name with one of the staff people, with Ms. Wise on the end there, and if we need some assistance from citizens, she'll have your contact information. That would be most helpful. Okay. There's no other citizen input. Okay, thank you. There's no one on the phones. Okay, thank you. We're now at the consent agenda.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The superintendent recommends that the school board approve the consent agenda as described in items 2 through 14.
Motion.
So moved.
Thank you, Dr. Rock. Motion by Dr. Rockwell. Is there a second? Second. Motion by Dr. Rockwell, second by Ms. McGraw. Any discussion? Ms. Abbott?
Yes. My only discussion is that I have been talking for months about getting TSAs back into the classroom. And on the consent agenda tonight is another teacher, a fourth grade teacher, being moved to a TSA position. I don't know what else to say or do to make some of these things happen, but we have permanent subs in classrooms, and we have the last sheet that I got, 63 TSAs. And so I will approve the consent agenda, but I just wanted to make note that we are still moving classroom teachers into TSA positions.
Thank you, Ms. Abbott. I'll address that because that's a different discussion at the end of the meeting, okay, with you? I have some info I'd like to share with you, but I had one question on the consent agenda, and Ms. Wise, I'm trying to find the page number here. I just had it and I closed it once you said that. The Brain Pop software, I was wondering, the Brain Pop LLC, it's on the bids and renewals. Is that used in all the schools or just the elementary schools, or is that specific schools?
I would have to check with staff to be sure. I think that's just elementary, but there was a time when it was elementary and middle. So I will have to check with instructional materials to know that answer for sure.
Okay. All right. Any other discussion or questions on the agenda? I have one actually too. I'm sorry. Just Mr. Rella, for budget amendment number 10 in the general fund, those Calc 3 adjustments, for FFP budget, it says FFP Calc 3 budget adjustment and the class size reduction. Was that for the previous school year, 21-22?
Thank you, Madam Chair, for the question. So we, as we go through the FEFP process, there's technically 5 calcs. We have conference report, which will come out in legislative conference. Calc 2, which comes out after the property appraiser certifies the tax roll. Calc 3 is based on October FTE. Calc 4 is based on February FTE. And what they do as we work through the school year is provide estimated, for our virtual, our eSchool, an estimated number of completions based on historical completion rates, and use that kind of as a placeholder. And then those completions are sent up to the DOE, I think in July, August, and based on the number of completions we were estimated to have and what actually were completed last summer, it was lower. So that's there was a lot of other adjustments with the FEFP, but as I put in the email, that was really the lion's share. We saw a reduction in our actual completions because, as we know, just being in the course doesn't really count money-wise. You have to actually complete. So,
thank you. Any other discussion on our consent agenda items? Okay, seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Okay, opposers? Okay, thank you. All right, we have some items that have come back to us from our job descriptions that are been put forth here. And we now have this is our second reading for those. Mr. Shelnutt's already at the podium.
Yes, ma'am. Good evening, Chair, certain members of the board, Superintendent Andrew. Thank you. The first action item deals with amended job descriptions for our transportation department. Madam Chair, I don't know if you would like to vote individually on each of these or what your preference is. There are two in transportation. The first is our bus attendant position, and the second is the bus driver. So I'm not sure how you wish to proceed, ma'am.
I think it's best if we vote on them individually, so we'll do that. We'll take them one at a time.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. The very first job description deals with our bus attendants. We had a first reading for these proposed changes on January 17th. A public hearing was held on February 7th, and this is the second reading. So if the board members should vote for this evening, these changes would be made official. The first deals with, again, our ESC bus attendant position. There were a few changes to the qualifications as well, but the superintendent recommends that the board amend the job descriptions, qualifications, and job responsibilities for bus attendant.
Can I have a motion, please?
So moved. Second.
Thank you. Motion by Ms. McGraw, second by Dr. McNeely. Is there any discussion? All in favor? I'm sorry, any public discussion? No phone calls? All in favor? Aye. Opposers? Okay, motion passes 5-0.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The second position in the Transportation Department are our bus driver positions. I want to echo what Ms. Ward said. We want to thank all of our bus driver appreciation, but thank all of our great employees in our Transportation Department. But the second position, again, deals with the changes in the job qualifications as well as job responsibilities for bus drivers. The superintendent does recommend that the board vote to accept and approve the amendments for bus drivers.
The motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Dr. McNeely, second by Dr. Rockwell. Any discussion? Any citizen input? On phone calls? All in favor? Aye. Opposers? Okay, thank you. All right, motion passes 5-0.
Madam Chair, moving on with your permission to action item number 2, we have 3 changes, proposed changes with the Facilities Department. And again, all 3 of these had a first reading on January 17th, a public hearing on February 7th, and this is the second reading. So again, should the board choose to act on this, these changes would be permanent and official. The first for our Facilities Department is the position of painter. Again, there were a few changes with the job qualifications there, but the superintendent is recommending the board vote to approve the amendments to the position of painter.
Motion, please.
So moved.
Motion by Ms. McGraw, second by Ms. Abbott. Is there any board discussion? Any citizen input? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, opposed? Motion passes 5-0.
Madam Chair, the second position in our Facilities Department deals with plumber. And again, the superintendent is recommending the board vote to approve the amendments and changes for the plumber job description.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Get a second? Okay, motion by Ms. McGraw, second by Ms. Abbott. Is there any board discussion?
Yes. So I got feedback from some employees that they are concerned with the complete removal of experience to preferred. They're just concerned that if we remove any experience requirement, they would be comfortable with dropping it down to 1 year or 2 years. But I I received citizen concerns, employee concerns about completely removing that, and I'm going to have the same comment for the next one. And I brought that to you, but I'm just putting it here on public record that is a concern that I've heard, and it's a concern that I have as well. I know we need to fill these positions, but I don't want us to do it in a way that sets us up for larger problems because we have inexperienced people making mistakes.
You said you had a question about experience being preferred being dropped?
Well, being added, because it basically means that you could have zero experience, because experience isn't a requirement, it's just a preference. And I know that, and I mean, I'm putting this on public record. Mr. Shelnett and I had a discussion right now. You know, we have excellent people in HR and over facilities, but that might not always be the case, that we have good people to vet our applicants. And it was a concern, again, that I had initially, even at first reading, and that has since been brought to me by employees. So,
Mr. Delaney. Yes.
I would just say that as written, there's a minimum of 5 years that is preferred. So if we had somebody who was 3 years and demonstrated the other licensure and competency in other ways, they would still be eligible for consideration.
Thank you. Any other board discussion? Citizen comment? Citizen input? Okay. All in favor? Aye. Any opposers? Okay, thank you. Motion passes 5-0. Technician.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. And the last for action item 2 deals with HarvTech, the heating, air conditioning, refrigerating, ventilation technician. Again, the first reading was on January 17th, the public hearing on February 7th. But the superintendent is recommending that the board vote to approve the amendments to the position of HarvTech.
Your motion, please.
So move. Second.
Motion by Dr. McNeely, second by Ms. McGraw. Is there any citizen input? Okay, any board discussion? Okay. Dr. Rockwell?
I mean, basically same comment as the last time, those two positions, again, just concerns with making all experience preferred.
Thank you. Any other? Okay. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposers? Okay. Motion passes 5-0. All right, thank you. And then we have amendments to policy 147.1 and 6550. Mr. Rella?
Thank you, Chair Certain. As you mentioned, action item number 3 is amendments to bylaws and policy. Bylaw 0147.1 speaks to virtual conferences for board members, and amendments to policy 6550 allow for, again, virtual conferences for staff. This is a second reading. We've had first reading and public hearing. The superintendent recommends the board approve the proposed amendments as presented.
And Mr. Rella, I am going to, and board members, could I get a separate, we're going to vote on them separate, so could I get a motion for policy 147.1, please?
So moved.
Motion by Dr. Rockwell, second by Ms. McGraw. Is there any board discussion on policy 147, bylaw 147.1? Any citizen input? Okay, thank you. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposers? Okay. Can I have a motion for 6550, policy 6550?
So moved.
Second. Okay, motion by Dr. Rockwell, second by Ms. McGraw. Is there any board discussion? Okay, any citizen input? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. All right, just bringing our policies up to date. Makes sense if you got a policy for travel and training that you can go to it. It makes sense to only, since things are being offered virtually, to be able to attend that and the board pay for it, and you don't have the cost of transportation and lodging possibly. Okay, thank you for that. All right, I think we will move along. Agenda item 5. I'm sorry, 4.
6152 and 6152.01. Mr.
All right,
Rella?
so the second round of policy amendments is Policy Amendment 6152, which speaks to student fees, fines, and charges, and Policy 6152.01, waiver of such fees. And again, this is the second reading. We've had the public hearing first reading. Chair Certain, would you prefer I motion these or recommend these? Thank you. The superintendent recommends the board approve Policy 6152 as presented.
The motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Motion by Ms. McGraw, second by Dr. Rockwell. Is there any board discussion or comment? Any citizen input in the auditorium? No phone calls? Okay. All in favor? Aye. Opposers? Okay. Motion passes 5-0. Policy 6152, waiver of school fees.
6152 is the waiver of the fees, again, mentioned before. The superintendent recommends the board approve the waiver of school fees policy as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Ms. McGraw, second by Dr. McNeely. Any board discussion? Any citizen input in the auditorium? Any phone calls? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Okay, now Ms. Nguyen or Ms. Eunice. Okay.
Your mic.
Mic's not on?
Yep. Should light up red when you press the button.
Okay, got it. Okay, the change order number 2 for project SBAC Civia Center Building C improvements. This change order adds $46,657.91 to the contract, revising the contract total to $808,714.05, and represents an increase in costs for a test and balance of existing units, material cost acceleration, adding lights and power to lights at the new freezers and coolers, contractor staff due to freezer and cooler delivery delays, patching and repairing existing damaged drywall, and rotating overhead door motors. The superintendent recommends that the school board approve additive change order number 2 in the amount of $46,657.91. This change order adds 0 consecutive calendar days to the contract time.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second? Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Ms. McGraw, second by Dr. Rockwell. No phone calls, no citizen input. Any board discussion, any questions? Okay, I had one. So was it just the increase in cost because it was after they had to wait a long time for the freezer to come in, and they said now that everything costs them more to do, materials?
Yes, there was a delay due to the supply chain and in addition to the lights being added. So,
okay.
Yeah, we had to pay the superintendent of the project to be at the project, and also the delay of the supplies.
So rescheduling, huh? So they had to come back to us after being with us. Okay. All right, that seems to be the consensus with construction these days. Any other board discussion, questions? Okay. All in favor? Aye. Any opposers? Okay, motion passes 5-0. Thank you. All right. Number 6, ESSER amendment.
Madam Chair, Board, Superintendent Andrew, I present to you action item number 6. This is our American Rescue Plan ESSER 3 Amendment 5 that we are putting forward. This has hopefully more information as requested by the board during the last meeting, and the superintendent recommends that the board approve the proposed amendment for submission to the Florida Department of Education as presented.
Is there a motion?
So move.
Motion by Dr. McNeely, second by Ms. Rockwell. Any board discussion? I'm sorry, Ms. Abbott. I'm sorry. Motion by Dr. McNeely, second by Ms. Abbott. Any board discussion? Any questions? Anybody have any questions? I have a little bit. We have any citizen input?
I have something too.
Okay, go ahead, Ms. Abbott.
I just wanted to thank staff for listening to me about Camp Crystal scholarships. I appreciate that very much.
Okay, thank you. So the question, the concern, I still have a few concerns, and I've shared those with staff, but just for the benefit of my colleagues, of us making sure that the way we're spending these temporary funds is really going to impact student outcomes. I want us to, my concern at the last meeting was that we didn't have enough information to make, in my opinion, an informed decision. And there just wasn't enough documentation, and there was a lot of money being moved around. So I spoke with a couple of staff, members of staff, and they shared with me this is kind of taking money out of the big buckets and making it more identifiable, for lack of a better word. I like the one-pagers, the justification. There are a few that I think we, one I think need a little bit more. I think there was maybe an adjustment to one that I didn't get, the turnaround principle, and I want to talk to Ms. Jones and Mr. Andrew about that. But my concern was that we make sure that we are, as an organization, all the departments are, when they're proposing solutions, and that they're talking, and that we clearly outline the objective, and that we have clearly defined metrics and ways that we're going to monitor our progress, because we don't want to just spend money with no way of evaluating how effective it is. If we're doing something, we need to make sure that it's really having the intended outcome, and if it isn't, then we need to have the information that we can pivot and do something different. And then we may find that we decide to make an investment in something, and we were not putting a whole lot behind it, but we realize we're having really good outcomes, and we want to do more of that. And maybe we're using it in a small environment, 1 or 2 schools or something like that, and we see that it's really yielding good returns. But we really need good data to be able to do that, and I think we have to think about that before we spend money, and before we make decisions. And we have to talk and make sure that what Department A is doing, they're doing something over here that may have a downstream impact, that we've talked with the folks downstream. When I say we, meaning staff, what I'm trying to get at is I just feel that there's some siloed things, and that siloing that we see, and folks we aren't talking to each other, and we're not really, I felt a concern that we're not really monitoring things as well as we could, because what I don't want to get to the end of is when these federal funds expire, that we don't see improvements in student outcomes, that we have not addressed the impact that COVID has had, because that's what the intention of the money is. And we can't use the excuse of saying, oh, we didn't do this, that, or the other because we didn't have funding, because we had a lot of money that ran through the school district in a short period of time. And I just kind of wanted us to be that. So I thank staff for, trying to address some of my concerns, but I still do have some concerns that I will circle back to the superintendent with. So if there's anyone else have any discussion? Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry, Dr. McNeely. Please forgive me. Go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead. I didn't see your light. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I looked at all of the areas from student behavior, mental health support, all types of great things here that the staff and you have decided we need to get these items for our students. And one caught my eye because I'm elementary, the Good Deed Tuesday. I thought that was really interesting, the textbooks that you are purchasing for those particular schools. I certainly want to see, once the children receive these texts and the teachers have had an opportunity to go through the reading with them. Apparently, the schools selected this particular book. It's for grades 3 through 5. And for kindness. And I thought that was really interesting. So I'd like to hear a report later
if not from you, from the schools themselves, to share what made the difference now that these kids have received Good Deed Tuesday. I'm very interested because maybe some other schools might need them as well. So I just wanted to, it's a lot of money here. I started adding up all of the funds that you all were requesting and the items for those requests. And it's a lot of money. I don't know if the department sat and added up everything. It would be interesting to see how much total that you came up with for coming from the ESSER funds.
Yes, ma'am. So Dr. Edwards is heading up specifically the activity that you discussed. And I know a lot of those portions that you're referring to was approximately $2 million. And that was money that was specifically earmarked to help with mental health and behavior in students. And that's the pot that Dr. Edwards and her team have worked very hard to be very purposeful and mindful in using. So, yes.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay. All in favor? Aye. Any opposers? Okay. Now, motion passes 5-0. Thank you, Dr. Boker, and others who responded to our request for additional information. So we are back to citizen input. If we have anyone who would like to speak to something that was not an agenda item, we now have a space to do that. We don't have any sheets, but you may go to the podium. Please state your name. You'll have 3 minutes with us.
Ron Ross, pastor of Greater Bethel AME Church. I heard Dr. McNeely mention something about mental health, and I know you all have amazing resources, but I do want to make it known that we have a partnership with UF Health, and we're focusing on Black students because I'm serious about closing all these gaps and disparities. We offer not just free mental health from children from 12 to 17, but we actually pay them either $60 or $100 to participate in the mental health. And you can just contact our church or look on our website and you see the information. Bring students, they don't need insurance. And for students that are 16 and 17, we train them to be mental health coaches, which looks good on their resumes. And we're specifically trying to address some disparities in the Black community. And so if you have students that you'd like to refer, visit gbgville.com, or you can contact me at Greater Bethel AME Church, 376-8846.
Thank you, Pastor Ross, for that. I will speak with Dr. Edwards about that. I don't know if there's some way that we will have to be able to distribute some information. If you have flyers, the only thing, the peach jar, they charge us to do that, but there may be something that we could, she and I had a long conversation last week about trying to connect our students with mental health services and providers, and I was proposing using some of the ESSER funds to contract with outside agencies because in the school day we can't do it, and having a way of being able to connect them. So I'll call the church and get more information, but maybe there's something with our community school over at Bishop where they have the middle schoolers, and then maybe the high school, see if there's some way we could connect students with. So any coach, you mean the 16 and 17? Okay. Thank you for that. I'll get in touch with you to get more information about that. Yes, ma'am, if you state your name.
My name is Gertrude Johnson, and I work at AMI Kids. I think that it's important to have some type of mental health or something like that into schools, because we have to deal with that a lot in AMI, and I think that's how they actually get there, which is an alternative school. So it's important to have some kind of mental health, some type of counseling, behavior, all that. If not, they're going to end up at my school. So I think it's important. I just wanted to comment on that.
Thank you for that. Do we have any citizens? We have one phone call. Okay.
Caller, please state your name. You have 3 minutes with the board.
Good evening. This is Rochelle.
I'd like to start off by saying thank you to each of you for serving. I know it's a thankless job. My reason for calling in tonight is the lack of discipline in the schools. I hear a lot of talk about it. We've heard a lot of talk about it. We've seen no action. You have a board member sitting up there that has done the work. She has put in the time, the research, and has the plan. Enough is enough. I cannot imagine anyone in this community not getting behind this program 100% and getting behind it immediately. Our schools need this. With all of the fights, certain people are tying the hands of administrators. We know who's doing it. When these fights are happening and they're wanting to suspend kids, but people are stepping in and saying no, we know who you are. The fights are out of control. Do we need to be on national TV? The schools are a powder keg. If we don't get on it and get out of the way of people who want to step in and handle it, what direction is this going? If you would put as much effort toward reining in the discipline problems as you put to masking our students, we could get ahead of this. You sat up there with the drama, with the mask, saying, if it saved one child, all of your concerns, what if we saved one child from physically being assaulted at a school? What if we saved one administrator or teacher from being physically assaulted at school? Get behind it with that same energy you brought to mask. You talk about retaining teachers. Why do you think they're leaving? Listen to the bus drivers. They're on social media. They're telling you why they're leaving. Get on it. Do something about it. Stop kicking the can down the road. You have a board member up there that has the most amazing plan. Get behind it. Support it. It's my understanding that that board member is walking the hallways, riding the buses, sitting in the cafeterias. Listen to her and get behind her 100%. Just because it's not your idea does not mean it is not a great idea. Either get out of their way or get behind them. But the fights cannot continue. You cannot continue to tell administrators at school that they can only discipline certain students a certain way. We can't have different discipline resolutions for different types of students. It's not working. Not working. Get behind this the way you got behind masks and shutting down our schools. Let's see some action.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. There are no other callers. Okay, we move now to, I'm going to, Joseph Wiggins, do you have, I'm going to give you a space now if you have any that you'd like to, any concerns or any, you'd like to greet the board. I'll give you a space now to do that.
I just want to say thank you for having me here.
Okay. That's okay. That's all right. Listen, he next meeting. He wasn't prepared, but I did want to give him a space. I wrote myself a note to do that, and I want to make sure that our student representative that we give him a space to whoever our student representatives, we give them a space to bring and share with the board what they have. So, and I told him that if I would call on him. So we'll have that the next time. So our agenda reads strategic vision. That Ms. Green and I, when we talked, that didn't get changed. It was supposed to have been chair report. So I'm going to do that, and then we'll go to board member and superintendent requests, and I'll address you after I do that. So under chair report, I just have one thing that I want to share with my colleagues tonight. We've all had the activities and everything. I want to thank Transportation Department. It is Transportation Appreciation Week, and I couldn't ride this week, so I'm scheduling. Mr. Jones is going to schedule something for me to go out with them. I think one day next week. I gave Ms. Green a date for that, so I'll be riding.
Friday is our day after the luncheon.
I'm just not able to do it on Friday. I got something else already planned.
We'll get you the best bus.
Yeah, next week, yes. I told them they put me on a bus. I couldn't go this week and all. But for my colleagues, what I want my time to be with today, last week I made a couple requests, but tonight what I really want us to encourage you all, I'm your representative on the budget committee that's been meeting. We've had 3 meetings thus far. And you all have received the slide deck from those meetings. And so I'm going to encourage you, if you haven't already, to read through the slide decks. And if you have questions, you could submit them to Mr. Rella, Mr. Andrew, share them, but bring them forth. If you want to say them in the next meeting. I'm not going to say send them to me because the budget is something that we'll be voting upon, and I don't want there to be a violation of sunshine on that. But the reason I'm bringing this up is that I really think when you saw the budget amendment that was in there for general fund, you all see what's our budgeted, our expected financial condition ratio will be like 5.84 at the end of this fiscal year. And that's really key, I think, we're getting ready to go into, the legislature will be starting a session, and we don't really know where things are going to go. We have a really big bill that's pending, HB 1, that's been struck and it's going to be rewritten, and then the Senate bill was issued last week. But we don't know the financial implications that bill is going to have on all districts, not just ours. So I'm encouraging you to look at the budget packets. It has the staffing manual that's in there that's going to be coming to us soon. It also has some other pertinent information in there. But I am of the opinion that our organization needs to make some cuts to make us financially stable or continue to be financially stable. And going forward, I think right now we have a situation where in this current fiscal year, we've used federal funds to shore up our budget and to ensure that we end the fiscal year with the financial condition ratio that is at least 5%, which is what's in board policy. So the state statute requires us to have a 3% financial condition ratio, but board policy says it has to be 5%. And there's a slide in that deck that shows how our reserves have been declining over a number of years. And so those are some decisions, Superintendent Andrew is going to have to work with Mr. Rella, and they bring a budget to the board to approve. But we can't continue to operate in the same vein where we are. That's one thing. And there's some opportunities for improvement, and as I said in the workshop, where we may have to repurpose and look at how we're currently spending, and programs we're currently operating, and we may have to make some changes so that we can make sure that the district stays strong financially going forward. And not to be Chicken Little and say the sky is falling, but we do have some challenges, and I'm concerned with the ESSER grant because we have some positions that are on there, and we have some expenditures that are on there that are reoccurring expenditures that we have to have going forward. And we have to figure out a way to pay for those things. And so once ESSER sunsets, those grants will be on another funding source, either our general fund, or IDEA, but we've got to find a landing spot for some reoccurring charges that are on that federal grant when they sunset. So I don't want to say we have till after another year to do it. I think we've got to start being proactive and not just wait until we get there and it's a drop dead date. So that's my report to you all. I know, and I was saying it now because you all have a different perspective having done the finance forum. It's a very good forum, very good information to have as a board member. And I think it probably puts the slide deck in a different perspective now that you've had that training. So that's what I have for my colleagues tonight. And so now we'll receive the requests from you guys at the end of the meeting here. So I saw Ms. McGraw's light first. And I will say, Madam Chair, one of the first things we did learn in finance training those positions that are reoccurring should have never been spent out of ESSER funds, is what we were told. That's one of the first things, because it's reoccurring. The other thing is, coming up on March, I would like to see, we've had the long workshop about the behavior. And as I said earlier, I have not been able to sleep with what our staff is going through. And so you're right, when it comes to looking at money, there's just some things we can't afford not to do. So we need to repurpose and really look at dealing with the behavior, because we want to get to, as Ron Rawls is gone, but the behavior is affecting the achievement gap. And unfortunately, the excuse of money is not acceptable, because we have to really look at where we're going. And right now, when you visit the schools, you ride the bus, I feel for the employees, because I wouldn't want to come to work in certain conditions. And so by March, because we can't open up in August the same way. And so I thank Mr. Andrew and his staff, who has been working, ESC and Student Services, who have been working very hard. But at this point, I stand by, there needs to be levels of interventions because of the crisis. And I think we need to, moving forward, we need to have meetings with our deans, what they're dealing with. We need a workshop, or we need to go and meet with them about what they're dealing with. But moving forward, we need to have the other locations, speaking with Ms. Bean, checking on her. We're continuing to grow. As a board member for the community, we have committees, and one of my committees is going to court every Wednesday. And to observe what you're witnessing, all 29,000 students are being affected and their families by this. So by March, we need to have something where, back from staff, I'm requesting, where we can move forward and look at how we're going to deal with the behavior, moving forward with the strategic visioning of enough is enough. And also looking at our ESSER funds. Hopefully this summer we will go full force, maybe partnering with our churches and helping with transportation some kind of way. Churches have asked how they could help. I said, if you can, some way we can work with them with our ESSER funds to help us get our kids back and forth and have them coming and staying after school, because I know transportation is a problem. But we are so behind academically, we have to get back to a phonemic awareness and back to sight words, working with a lot of our children, because they're not going to do well with math and reading and other subject areas if they cannot read. And so those are the requests. So coming up on March, we need to have a plan on where we're going as far as the behavior. Enough is enough moving forward. I know we have a workshop on March 8th. I think it is on March 7th, and then we have a board meeting on the 21st. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Rockwell.
So I want to concur with Mrs. McGraw that behavior and discipline are definitely a number one thing when you walk through our schools. And in terms of levels of intervention, our Tier 1 interventions in our schools, our positive behavior interventions and supports, I've heard from numerous administrators, teachers, and support staff that they have never gotten PBIS training, and that's like the low-hanging fruit. That is what we have baseline, our main behavior program, and the fact that even I went to one of our school improvement schools where neither of the administrators had gotten official PBIS training. So they were implementing a program. We have no idea if that program was being implemented with any fidelity because they had no training going into it. And that's something that I really want to see fixed, because if we don't even have a consistent implementation of our Tier 1 program and consistent implementation of our Student Code of Conduct, there should not be different rules and different consequences for different groups of students. I don't care if their parent works at the school. I don't care if their mom's best friend is Mr. Andrew. Everyone should be operating with our Student Code of Conduct. And so if we don't have those basic tiers in place consistently, we're not going to get anywhere adding on to that system. So I want to see training for all of our administrators and all of our deans and all of our BRTs in PBIS, and making sure that we are implementing consequences according to the Student Code of Conduct consistently across all schools, all groups of students. The other thing I wanted to bring up, unfortunately, I couldn't be here at last week's meetings. I had surgery on my foot and I was medicated. I had planned to Zoom in, but I was so medicated that I was in and out just trying to watch the meeting. I had to re-watch it on tape a week later when I was more with it. So I apologize for that, but I do know that my colleagues gave our superintendent and his staff direction on rezoning, and I just want to say that I have some concerns with the timeline. I definitely feel a sense of urgency about rezoning, but I definitely also have concerns for our families and for our staff members. We've already done magnet school applications. We've already done EDEP applications. How are parents going to handle having their student at a different school when they had no opportunity to arrange after-school care? Perhaps the after-school care they got doesn't bus from the school they get rezoned to. I think rezoning about 15,000 students is a huge undertaking, and I think we should definitely be giving direction clearly and immediately and have a clear timeline for that. I know Hillsborough County is trying to rezone a similar number of students. They started back in November with a goal of being done for this coming August of 2023. They've had to push it back to August of 2024, even starting earlier than we did. And so I want to make sure that we're setting realistic goals that work for our community. And I'm not saying I don't want to rezone. It's one of the things I ran on that needed to happen, and I still think it needs to happen, and I still think it needs to happen expediently. I just don't know if it is logistically possible to make it happen for this coming August.
Dr. McNeely? I saw your light on, that's why I called you.
I'm ready to speak, and I'm not going against my colleague, Dr. Rockwell, at all. Please understand that. But I have been involved and engaged with the R word, what you just said, rezoning. And one of my comments to the superintendent when we had our workshop, when you were out on the 8th of February, I think we all agreed that we need to do just what you're saying. However, with the staff that we have, we are scheduled to start on August the 10th, and I expect that. But that means that we will have to have many other meetings. One of my comments on the sheet tonight, which communities, I know that Mrs. Johnson has been so instrumental in when we've gone through spot rezoning and other rezoning while I've been on the board, we've always had involvement and community engagement. And so you cannot start in May with that if you're going to be ready in August. So I'm saying to the superintendent and to staff, we need to do this immediately. I know that we have all of our communities, Hawthorne, Micanopy, Newberry, Alachua, Gainesville. I'm probably missing some particular communities, but last night I was in a huge meeting at Lincoln Middle School, and I brought up the fact that there will be elementary rezoning, and everybody said, what? And I think the quicker that we make everyone understand the need, the purpose, why it's happening, I think we can get a commitment from families and citizens, but it's got to get out there. And so I've been saying it ever since we made the decision, or we talked about it as one of the top priorities on the 8th.
I'm hoping that the staff, the rest of our colleagues, will be doing the same. The more that we talk about it, the more that we can get it out. Dr. Rockwell, we can do it. We can do that because we have the staff in place that can make it happen. But it's the superintendent who will be telling the staff when to do this, like tomorrow, okay? It can happen. It can happen. And I don't want us to back up. I hear what you're saying about parents who have already signed up for magnet programs and the impact that will have, but all of that will have to come into consideration. One of my requests, I made this request on February the 8th. I wanted to see a survey commented, not the type of survey that we do by school. Does anyone remember that request that I made on that day, saying that I'd like to see comments from our staff, especially our administrators, about their needs, their supports, whatever? And I've not heard anything. Maybe you're working on that already. Maybe the superintendent has charged staff already to get that in. But I'm certainly ready to read and to understand what folk are saying, thinking, and needing. That's quite important. I have some other things, but I think the rezoning portion, the survey that I requested, I want to see that happening. As far as the behavior is concerned, I do want to say, I hope I can say this, Mr. Delaney, if you say it's not time, but on the 8th of March, I had a meeting on yesterday with the restorative justice team, and some heavyweights from the district were there, Mrs. Donna Jones, the superintendent, Dr. Edwards, Dr. Tony Griffin. I may have missed a heavyweight. I'm not sure. Did I call everybody? Dr. Edwards, did I name everybody who were there with me yesterday as heavyweights?
She's not going to get sucked into that.
Well,
you had a team. You don't have to name everybody.
I don't have to name everyone. Well, the ones I named are not lightweighted. They are heavy. And I wanted them to be there to hear the presentation. It will be a presentation similar, but shortened by a lot of minutes on the 8th. And I'm hoping that we will be able to listen to this team, an incredibly great presentation, and maybe do some consideration. Thank you.
Ms. Abbott, did you have anything?
Yes. Before I was elected, I would sit in the audience at board meetings, and I would become so frustrated because I'd be sitting there thinking, my God, we have kids in schools that are failing. We have teachers that are leaving. And now I get up here, and I'm even more frustrated than I was sitting in the audience. And so I think it's important because as a citizen sitting out there, if you're watching this meeting and you're a parent who's very, very frustrated, and you see that we're talking about amending policy, all things that we have to do, but that's the discussion, and we're not talking about all the issues that are in the school, you can understand why parents are upset and frustrated because in their mind there are bigger issues, and I think there are bigger issues, but I am learning slowly that there's a protocol that you have to follow, and I'm trying very hard to stay in my lane, and that's very difficult to do because I am used to having things happen. And I think that the only venue that we can talk is a meeting that's been noticed, and those are very few and far between. We have one workshop and maybe 2 a month, and then we have this board meeting. And I'm feeling frustrated because I'm feeling that it's very disjointed. You know, I have one-on-ones with the superintendent, but, you know, there are things that we bring up. I don't know when they'll ever be addressed again. And there are things that I think are important, and rezoning is one of those, but I don't know what the timeline is for that. What is the procedure for that? You know, we had strategic planning and we brought up ideas. And so when will those ideas be addressed again? You know, one thing you can say about this board is that we're out in the schools. And so it's not, you know, we know what's going on, but sometimes it's very frustrating being out there and not being able to have any response to parents or to teachers when they have really legitimate complaints, and we are losing teachers, and we have to do something different in this district. We can't just continue to not take action on some of these things. And so I have some requests. I'm going to phrase them as requests because that's what I'm supposed to do. But one of the things that frustrates me most is when I get emails from parents or teachers and they're addressed to the board and to the superintendent, sometimes to principals, and I respond back. But I never know if it's been followed through. And I'm feeling that when I hear from some of these parents that they've exhausted all avenues. And so I'm requesting that whenever we get an email like that the superintendent responds, if he's responding to, and I don't know if he can or not, Mr. Delaney, but if he's responding to a parent, that we're copied on that.
So the superintendent, I'm not sure if he responds to all. I don't think he does. He has a deputy, and there are two principal supervisors, one for primary, one for secondary. And the turnaround principals are there. So I think an appropriate person. I don't want to task the superintendent with responding to every single parent's concern. And some people start with the board. They don't always go to the building principal. And so, me personally, I ask: have you started with? If it's an issue with the teacher, have you tried to speak with the teacher? Have you tried to speak with the principal? And if that doesn't work, before we had the two principal supervisors, I would direct things to the deputy. So I think what you're wanting is for the board to be informed if something has been addressed. And so I don't think we should hamstring and direct Mr. Andrew to do that. I think it should be that we, whoever is his designee, that we know that we get informed that a request or concern has been addressed.
We can request Mr. Andrew to request his personnel to respond to that then.
What I'm saying is that's what I think you're addressing. I'm trying not to have our superintendent, who is highly paid, addressing staff concerns, and it's not, parent concerns, because there are a lot of other things when there's staff up under him. And when folks come to us, Ms. Abbott, I'm frustrated. I came to board meetings for probably 4 years before I ran, 2016. So I feel your frustration. I'm not dismissing your complaint at all. I sat through many meetings in the board. I felt like they would listen to me, and Dr. McNeely is one of them. I used to be like making me, mugging her. Didn't respond, and I didn't understand why she didn't respond. So that's why I often tell the citizens we don't respond to them. But the board, by statute, we can't go into schools. We can't direct principals. We can't direct teachers. That's state statute. Am I correct, Mr. Delaney?
Yes, ma'am.
So our direction is through working through that, right? And so,
not directing principals or anything.
no, but I'm saying what you said is you go into schools and you're frustrated in that we're not addressing things. So there's a lot from the board perspective that we have to do, that. And student achievement is number one. So I guess my point is, I think you can make the request that the board is informed when we get the emails from parents or from citizens about issues, so that they can get addressed. I don't want us to just say we're going to direct Mr. Andrew to do that, because I just think that puts too much on him when there are other staff members. So
no, and again, but someone needs to be addressing that and letting us know, because if we each have to go to him individually to say, did you respond to this, then that takes up much more time than anything else. The second thing is that I am requesting that the superintendent look at the new policy that Title I is thinking about adopting this year with regards to lowering the threshold for funding for schools. They're trying to include more middle and high schools, and that's 8 additional schools, which means the funding for elementary schools has been decreased by about 30%, and with 7 SI elementary schools, they do not need their funding decreased. And so I'm asking Mr. Andrew to look into that and possibly reconsider. And I'm pretty sure it was a Title I policy. I don't know if you even knew anything about it. They just made that decision, but I'd like for you to look into that, please.
That decision that went out, and that wasn't made. We addressed that in the last budget meeting.
Chair,
Yes.
if
Yes.
I may.
Yes.
Yes, so two things. When those emails come, we do make sure that they get to the right person. And whether that's a chief and executive director, we follow through with principals to see what's happening at the schools. We get the report, or if it's in transportation or wherever it might be, right, we follow up with them. So those emails we do follow through on, and we make sure the right person gets those. And then on the Title I, there was a lot of discussion, and the discussion went out like a decision was made. We're keeping Title I funding as it is for right now, and a lot of the same reasoning as what you mentioned with our SI schools and where we're at and being in a hold harmless year and where we'll be next year in this same position, with hopefully more guidance from the state on not only progress monitoring, but getting some credit for learning gains and not just, proficiency. We decided it's going to stay as it is and will be readdressed moving forward.
All right, thank you for that. But I'm new, and so I'm going to ask questions. But there was no way I would have known any of that stuff. So I'd have to have some superpower, which I don't have. But thank you.
Madam Chair, I wanted to share with my colleague, Ms. Abbott, there are some messages, for instance, the ones I received today, sometimes they are directed explicitly to the individual. I happened to call Mrs. Peck and Mrs. Green today to see if they even received them. When Mr. Andrew and Ms. Peck or whomever may be included on our email, then they would know. Otherwise, they would not know. And I get a lot of emails in that manner. I don't know if you do or not, but they'll come specifically to Dr. McNeely. And I have to make a decision at that point whether to share when I go with Mr. Andrew for my every other meeting week or just hold it until I get in a workshop. So it's tough. It's tough.
The emails to board members go to all of us as well as to the superintendent.
But
and
not
staff.
if-
But no, what you said is correct. But I think I was understanding Ms. Abbott to mean the emails that come to us as to the board members' address, because that's where all of us are seeing that, and she's wanting to know that the concern has been addressed and it hasn't gone into la-la land. I have a question. So my understanding is, like, if I request something, then you have to let Ms. Green, correct me if I'm wrong, you share with the other board members. If I request a document, okay, then it's shared with everybody. Okay. And so when emails come, they're usually addressed to all of us, but regardless if they're, like, I get some that come straight to me, but they all become public record anyway. But, I guess it's up to us to share if we want to share once we get to board meeting. Okay. Yeah, I think if a citizen or parent or someone emails you individually, you can decide how you're going to handle that. I personally, when I get emails to myself, I turn them over to the staff to get paid, because my husband told me I do too much work already. As a board member, he says, you do way too much. And so that I'm not, because I don't have the authority to fix things. Like, I could be wrong, and I really want the staff to really let me know if I'm not. But a lot of the concerns that we are receiving about behavior and about, there are things that the board has done the part of adopting a code of student conduct, and we have board policies. The implementation and carrying that out, we can make a whole lot of rules and laws all day long, but if they're not carried out and implemented, we got to figure out where the disconnect is. And I think we go to Mr. Andrew, and I think we got to just lean on him and the deputy for them to be with the school leaders and to see, what everybody is needing to support them, because the teachers are reaching out to us. I have them reach out to me as well. And I don't dismiss it, but I really have to say, like, how are the admins at the school handling that? And I think as we discussed earlier, we think that training needs to happen with a lot of people, but we have the challenges of
getting training accomplished, scheduling it, people attending and doing that type of thing. So there are a lot of, there is this ebb and flow of information, and there's this pull and tug, I feel, between what we can do as elected officials and then what the staff has to do. The bulk of the work of doing this here is done by the superintendent and the staff, the folks that are on staff.
Yeah.
Madam Chair, I want to tell the public, and I'm sure it's happening to the other four of you, and I made mention in our executive session today an incident that caught me by surprise yesterday, but it doesn't matter whether I'm in a florist shop, a dress shop, my dentist, at the courthouse paying a bill, I'm going to get stopped because people know that I serve on this board. And I'd better be able to stop and listen to them, not brush them off, and I never do. I'll stand as long as they want to talk to me. But believe me, folk, it's not just calls and emails. It's every time I hit the public. Oh my gosh, any event I go to, may I see you for a minute? That's how it starts. And I try to be very kind at all times because they are the folk who need to be heard, and then we should take action. So I just want to say it's not just calls and emails. I don't care if I'm at a dog show, a pet show, somebody's going to stop me.
Well, and that's true. And Madam Chair, the thing is, though, we have to have what I see, a cultural change. We can't keep going 5 miles per hour. And one of the things you have to understand, when you look at our org chart, it says community. Okay? That's the first. I know I've been volunteering in school since 92. And so some of the same issues from 92, we're still dealing with in 2023. And so then we have to begin to ask ourselves, I think about skill, will, and I'm going to keep it real. Do we have a skill set problem? Are people willing to change, or people not willing to change? And that's a reality, because as a board, we're responsible for the achievement gap. We are responsible for hiring and firing of the superintendent. We work with our superintendent, but if your staff doesn't keep moving, it comes back to us. And I think that's where, like Ms. Abbott and us, you get frustrated because you've talked about things, you've gone and you've given, like when I go into the schools, principals can't tell you, I'm going and telling them nothing to do. I'm coming to observe, because then I have to come back here and make decisions. But there's a hesitation sometimes. What are we doing? And I'm going to look at behavior all the time. What are some people doing every day? Because people are coming to us. You almost need an ombudsman. You have a public relations thing. When people email us, when you pass it on, it shouldn't be 2 or 3 or 4 days before people get a response. It should be sooner. And that's where the frustration comes in. And I don't care what you do. This is political. You decide to run for office, I don't have any problem. Anybody I know, I don't mind having conversations. I don't mind communicating with people. It's not about who likes who. Whatever is best for children, that is my focus. However, it has to be a change overall, because if not, we'll be back at this. And I look, because we don't need to keep changing. We've had 11, I think, superintendents in the last 10 years or something. Dr. McNeely, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but that's instability, okay? And then we're still talking about some of these same issues because people are not moving. And you're right, they have to move. But when it boils back down to it, I would expect us all working together as a team, school board, and Mr. Andrew and his staff, we all know we're on the same team. But if you don't move, the first people are going to come to is the board. And then you're going to have the community sitting out here. And we're at the 90-day mark right now. We've been here since November, December, January, February. At your 6 months, if we still talking about some of these same things, I promise you, you're going to have people sitting out, oh, well, they're not doing anything either. And all of us, we have a great board that's working together. We may not agree totally on everything. We having these workshops, but we're still coming back, and some things have not moved at all. And people will show you. They're not going to always say anything. And that's why I talk about rebranding ourselves. We say we committed to every student. Well, let's do that. But we have to do that together as a team. And so that means that our staff that are sitting here, everybody has to say, I'm going to get on board. We can't pay you for every single little bitty thing, but what are we doing to make sure our children get better? That's the bottom line. It's not about who likes who. What are we doing? How does this benefit children? Because if not, I promise you, you're going to have all these people out here, and it'll be the same thing over and over. You need stability, especially after COVID. So I'm going to say that because I am truly concerned about where these schools are. If you go and observe, these people are working hard every day. And I don't do the back and forth. I don't go back and forth with, okay, I done told you, you're not seeing, okay. That's why when I presented enough is enough, I went to the community. I went to the staff that had to do this because can't get into different things like team building and stuff till we deal with getting behavior under control. And somebody who works in behavior, it takes you a good 6 months to get certain things under control. And what I see right now that's clearly killing your learning environment is this behavior. It is killing us. And everybody can sit here and keep saying, well, we're moving and we're moving. But if we don't move in a direction to bring about change soon, and I mean real soon, you're going to have a problem. And it can't be done. It can't be done. But we got to move because we're going to lose everybody we have that's in the trenches. That's in the trenches. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Mr. Andrew, I see your light. Did you have your light on, or was that just from? Okay, thank you. So thank you to each of you, Ms. McGraw. Your points are well taken, Ms. Abbott, Dr. McNeely. So we have a conundrum here because I think we do have the benefit of the doubt of all of us here. We do want to improve student achievement in all of our schools with all of our children. All of us here, we have a board, and we have a superintendent who came to us in an interim thing. And I guess I need to ask you, when you say we need stability, tell me what do you mean when you say stability?
When I talk about stability, my thing is we keep changing. We've been changing one thing after the next, okay? And then if you mess around and you change again, because when people get frustrated, they make these quick reaction changes. I'm speaking of when it comes to the superintendent. We've had 11 in the last 10 years, I think it is. 7.
I've served
7. Whatever that number is, too many. 7.
When I said that I've been on the board 10 years and I've been through 8 superintendents, that meant superintendents as well as the interim and people until we selected. I've been through that many.
But it shows. What I meant was to have that many, when I made that statement, to have that many within 10 years, however many it's been, that shows instability. That's what I mean by that. That's not stable. And so we have to bring, especially after COVID, we need more stability to this district. And it's even worse because, like he said, the achievement gap is getting wider and wider. If I had the choice, I would take that extra money, like I say, partner with these churches. Can we get your vans? Can we get your buses going? Can y'all come? Keep these kids after school. That was the money for you to play catch up. Mental health. That was the purpose of that money. And when people ask me, well, how can I get involved in churches? Come. We need your help during transitional times. Because I've gone to see when they're transitioning, how is it? Because we need help during those times. And people ask me, I'm telling them, come on, volunteer, get to this school. If this is one of the schools you attended when you were here, you know, people stand up and say, I'm proud to be a product of Alachua County Public School. Well, come on back. and come to these schools and help us. But all I'm saying is, when we get frustrated, then things begin to happen that you want to avoid happen if we learn to have a spirit of being more proactive. You know, like for example, parent called me, this is going on in a particular classroom, so I pass it on to the appropriate people. Well, 3 days go by, nothing happens, where the fight breaks out, the kid gets hurt, when I already told you that this was going to happen because I have to pass it on to the appropriate person. That's all I'm saying. And then when nothing happens, then here comes the next thing. Because when you're dealing with behavior, the seriousness of this behavior you were dealing with, you have younger parents, I talked about that, who need guidance, who are coming up to your schools and who will physically want to fight children. Those are the things we're dealing with now.
I agree with, I'm not to cut you off, but I was trying to figure out what the stability, because I'm trying to figure out, so stability and leadership, I think we
need to get this district stabilized. I really do. As somebody who's coming back, who's looking, because you've had several, to me that's my comment. It shows instability when you have that many superintendents in a short period of time. That's all I'm saying.
Right. Okay. So I think I can agree with you. I understand what you're saying, and that is a point that I've made as well. So the fact of the matter with having stability, you got to have a leader who's going to push out a vision and who's going to hold his staff accountable. That all of those things, what you just said, all of that. The board, we can support those things, which I think we have a consensus in trying to support those things. The fact still remains, and I keep saying, I'm not trying to shuck responsibility because I don't run from hard work. I think you know me better enough to know. But what I'm going to say is, the fact still remains is getting anything done is going to entail buy-in and implementation from staff at all levels. The board can do its part. We vote on a budget. We try. My decision is my input is we have to fund the priorities and the things that are important to us, and to pursue that. And I think I've shared with you my concerns. I've shared with the board my concerns of where we are with that. But when the brass tacks meet the road, the board isn't doing the work. And I am very concerned about the achievement gap, but I want you to show me where it says I'm me as a board member, I'm responsible for it. I'm very concerned about it, and I am doing things that want to impact it.
When I say that, Madam Chair,
yeah,
our motto is we are committed to the success of every student. And as we learn in our training, that's what I mean when I say that. That's still a part of it, all in the same ball game. And when you learn in training, when you went to your training, they told us, if we're not 50% or more focused on student achievement, we're all focused. But we can't focus on that because the atmospheres that you have, the environments that you have in your schools are not safe. They're not conducive to teachers delivering instructions. That's what I mean. And I'm going to continue to say that. And then part of it, riding on the bus. I think you're number 1065, if I'm not remember, I was out there riding. Here are kids, and we can't be afraid to bring parents in and have these conversations. All you can hear is everybody, I'm afraid. I don't want to sound like I'm fussing, but this is what you're getting. And you've been hearing the same thing over and over and over, and nothing's changing.
So I think it sounds like we're saying we need staff to take a different direction, but that's not for, we got to look to our staff.
I get that, but this is the only time.
No, we're discussing, but I'm saying that's why we're having it. That's why I said let's adjourn the meeting. Mm-hmm. I guess Superintendent Andrew, you and Ms. Jones, we need your help. I'm serious, in all seriousness, because I feel that I've exhausted what I can do. We have the stability. We have a leader. We're not saying we're trying to change a leader. That's what Member McGraw has made for. But we need the leadership in the school environments, the school administrators, and the admin team. We need you all to step up to the plate, to charge them, and then if there's whatever they need to. we can't just keep having people just shuck responsibility. And I know that since I've been on the board, there has not been a directive to any principal from the board to say that they can't write students up and they can't do this, that, or the other. That has not been since I've been on the board. I took my seat November of 2018 initially. I don't know what was shared. I've never been to a principal meeting. I've never been to any of that. But I do know the board has not given a directive that they can't discipline students. Now, I have a concern now. I got to pass off to the secondary principal about them feeling that the punishment has not been the same for students at one particular school. I don't know that, but that's what the accusation is, a concern from one parent. But we need, I mean, you all are hearing the concerns. You, Superintendent Andrew, you and Ms. Jones and the chiefs, y'all are hearing the same thing that we are, I guess. So, you know, I think it is on you all incumbent to, in the meetings that you have with your staff, you know, to give the firm direction and provide leadership. If the principals are saying they need training days, I mean, I already went through this when Dr. Edwards came up and said we need staff training, we need da 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 da. We had a PD day, and that I was expecting us to have a district-wide training on behavior, and we had some people here, some people there, and some staff people not going to training at all because it wasn't required. I mean, I don't know, because I can't give them. You know, you and I have ideas, Ms. McGraw, Ms. Abbott, and Dr. Manning but we can't. We can put these up, but we don't have any authority to make the staff do the work. That's what I'm trying to get here. We got to look down here on this end of the dais to say to the people, because they're the ones who are dealing with the principals and the APs and the folks who are charged with carrying out this, to keep in order, making sure we have safe work and learning environments. On the bus, that's Mr. Jones. If the staff need training, we have to train them. But then once we've trained them, then the implementation. I'm trying to figure out how we can have some immediate change in results. I'm like you, it has gone on. Yes, sir. Mr. Delaney.
Madam Chair, if I may, what I'm hearing from the board is in the past couple meetings, they've asked for a plan, and I think really what the board is looking for back in the immediate term, not the near term, but the immediate term, is timelines. The board has asked for strategic planning. They've asked for a plan regarding elementary rezoning. They've asked for a plan regarding behavior. And I think that there's an information disconnect between the requests that the board is making, which is certainly within their power to make those requests, and timelines for when those processes are going to be implemented.
I think that's a good summary. Thank you for giving me a landing pad.
I think point well taken.
And so, I didn't hear.
Point well taken.
Yes. Thank you for giving us a landing pad. And I think maybe I'd like to have maybe the next meeting, and I don't know if March or the workshop, the meeting and the workshop, we just kind of have you bring something back to us, Mr. Andrew. I think I didn't get a chance to meet with you yesterday, but the timeline of the rezoning, I think the staff that that's been put together to a task with doing that, I think they need your authorization to go ahead and to move quickly, to not like wait, because you haven't done this before. I'm not expecting you to do it, but there are people in the organization that have worked on rezoning and have done that, and I just think they need the authorization to go ahead and go to be able to do what needs to get done, and not like you're overwhelmed, and I'm not expecting you to do it all, but I think the staff needs the authority or your approval to go ahead and to do the work. Let them lay out the timeline and to bring back something to us. And it's just, to me, I think, just so you know, I get a little frustrated also when I make requests and nothing happen to them. I mean, and I've told the superintendent this, I'm like, you take a lot of notes, but please give me something. But so maybe in the next meeting you could bring us back something for, the actions that are going to be taken in timelines. What Attorney Delaney just, the landing pad that he.
I requested Chairman Certain and Attorney Delaney, and I was told it costs too much to keep noticing meetings. But just in the discussion that we're having right now, it shows that we need to talk more together, and maybe not pointing out all of the things that have not been done. Maybe we need to put down what has been done and then look at where we are with the have-nots. And the more that we can discuss, because I don't know what Dr. Rockwell wants versus Ms. Certain. And so tonight, I'm hearing so many things, and we missed Dr. Rockwell at our last workshop. But unless we are able to speak together, we are going to have a disconnect. And I would love to be able, with Mrs. Jones, the chiefs, the superintendent, all of us to sit down together and have this kind of discussion.
So, Dr. McNeely, that was really a joke when I said that about the it does cost, but that was a joke. So I think
No, but
so.
you're not the only one. The people over here.
Okay, so since it's come up about, like, we tried to schedule another meeting and in this month and we couldn't. So I think some of it is our scheduling. So, but what I will do is I'll work with Ms. Green, and we will get a doodle poll out where we can get some additional meetings and things on. And if it's just a conversation for us to have and we don't need staff to prepare, but we have to have staff there to talk, we'll get that done. But in the interest of time, I will have Ms. Green will talk in the morning about getting a doodle poll set up with some tentative dates for additional workshop meetings and things of that nature. But Superintendent Andrew, please do not mistake those additional meetings to be like you pump the brakes to do the things that we've already asked you to do. Please have the staff, and I'll go ahead and bring us back timelines to be working on those things. We've already said that, but just so that we'll know a solution date or what to expect when and all. But
And Chairman Certain, would you let the public know what time we can start it? Our meeting today. We've been here. I don't want people to think we just come for an hour and a half the first and third Tuesday. We've been in this very room since 1 o'clock. And so I want people to understand we work hard as well. And just because we're sitting down on our bottoms, it doesn't mean our brain is not working and we're talking and we're suggesting. I don't think the public gets that. They don't know we walked in. Well, I came at 12:30. So I don't know if people realize that it's not just us sitting at this table from 6 to 8. I think it's important for the public to know we started today at 1 o'clock.
Thank you, Dr. McNeely. You're correct. We were here, and you are a very. Well, I want to commend Dr. McNeely because she is a hardworking board member and has been very responsive to citizens even before I was here. So I tip my hat to you because you're very accessible and you're always out in the community at events. So it is more than just a Tuesday, first and third Tuesday, and the work sessions that we now have. We have a regularly scheduled one. It is more than that. We're, the school, visiting schools for events and various reasons if you just want to observe, and as the school improvement schools now, I've broken that up and other board members are doing that. It was, so it is more to it. But to make decisions and things based on the Florida law, we have to govern in the sunshine, and if we talk about things that we would vote on, it has to be in a publicly noticed meeting. And so we'll get more of those scheduled so that we can do that, even if it is just for us just to talk of what have you, okay? Is there anything else? You have something else, Mr. Andrew?
Yes, Madam Chair, just to update you all while you're here together. So right after our last board meeting, we began having meetings the day after discussing rezoning, and we've talked timelines, we've talked kindergarten roundups, public input meetings, magnets, ESOL centers, what we're going to do there. Of course, the policies that we'd have to work on, 5120.01 and 5120.02 when it comes to the rezoning. Controlled open enrollment was discussed, policy 5121. Skyward updates, how those transition to Versatrans, transportation routing. Of course, we discussed allocations and FTE projections, which will be forthcoming. So all of those were part of the discussion. We also, has been mentioned by others, started looking at EDEP, looking at that, look at how teacher placement, and looking at the CBA as far as moves, considering VAM, different things like that could impact us. So looking at zoning exceptions, that's part of the whole process. And bringing to the board in a plan whether there's any consolidation of schools or reactivations or anything like that. Of course, we have to look at the VPK pre-K sites as part of this whole deal. Identify other areas of concern. Of course, the communication piece that was mentioned. District ESE programs, would they remain where they're at? What does that look like? And so, and then like even the discussion of the recently rezoned students to Metcalf, we looked at some of those things. So we jumped on that immediately. Our thought on a timeline on rulemaking would be that it would need to come to the board at the April 18th meeting for the first reading. The second would be that first meeting in May. I don't have my calendar in front of me. And then the second meeting in May would be where it'd be the final reading there, if I'm understanding the process correctly. And Mr. Delaney could correct me on that. But I would think that would all need to be wrapped up by the end of May. So moving lines is one thing, but making sure transportation has the time to reroute. I know they're currently in the bidding process. We've discussed some of that. Mr. Jones is sending out communications to his drivers, that routes are what they are now, but they're subject to change. And they'll have that information in their hands. I think he was planning to get a correspondence out to them tomorrow. So that's some of what we've done on the rezoning. I do think, just my professional opinion, when it comes to rezoning, we ought to be looking at K-12 rather than doing the elementary and then a year or two later or whenever it comes around for the secondary schools. But that's just my thought when it comes to the community and how we're going to do that. So that would be a thought. We've talked about summer, Dr. McNeely reminded me, we've talked about having an extended summer school opportunity of the 4 weeks in June and then 3 weeks after July. I do know all those things take dollars. But I think it's important to address that achievement and the learning loss that could occur, and also just that continuity of supporting behavior. I do agree with Board Member McGraw. I think we need another alternative setting for our students. Again, this is my professional opinion, but I do think we need other alternatives for that. There's other things that we can put in place as we continue to address behavior. That's not one thing that would resolve everything, but it might give us a transition area to help support our students with a lot of their different needs. With strategic planning, I talked last week to Diana Weinbaum, and so we're working on getting them up here right away. And by right away, we're hoping no later than next week that they'd be able to coordinate a meeting with our team to refine the scope of what was presented in the RFP, because now it really gets to the nuts and bolts of that strategic planning process. And of course, we would include all parties when we're working on that. So, but we'll work on a timeline in writing for you all and the strategic planning, as well as some of our behavior targets on plans we need to do. And agreed, we have to figure out where do we make the cuts to provide the services that we think we need to provide some immediate support for our administrators, teachers, and staff. And I would also say I've never been to a principals meeting where anybody sitting up here has told our administrators or deans not to discipline children. I would say that as a former school principal. Sometimes the kids that I had in my school needed more support than we could offer right there on that particular site. And so, but I think we need as many alternatives as possible to support our kids. And I'll leave it there for right now at that. And thank you for the time, Madam Chair.
there anything else? Okay, seeing none, motion to adjourn? Yeah. We're adjourned. Thank you.